Ronald Joseph DeFeo Jr. was born on September 26, 1951 in Brooklyn, New York. He was the firstborn child of his father, Ronald Joseph Big Ronnie DeFeo Sr., and his mother, Louise Marie Brigante DeFeo. Ronald, who would go by the nickname Butch, grew up in a dysfunctional family and had what family and friends would call a troubled childhood. The DeFeo family would eventually grow, as Ronald would have two younger sisters, Dawn and Allison DeFeo, and two younger brothers, Marc and John Matthew DeFeo. The DeFeo family would eventually move from their Brooklyn apartment to an affluent Long Island South Shore community of Amityville. They would move into a large waterfront Dutch colonial home located on 112 Ocean Avenue. Ronnie Sr. dubbed the family's home High Hopes. Being the firstborn son of the 5 DeFeo children, Ronnie Sr. would always expect more from his younger namesake. Ronald Jr. was bullied at school, where he was beaten up and called fat. His father encouraged him to stand up to the bullies and fight back. And at times, his father was not afraid to discipline him in the cruelest fashion. It was said that one minute the senior DeFeo would hug his son, and the next minute he would become enraged and throw his son across the room. Ronnie DeFeo Sr. was also said to be verbally and physically abusive towards his wife, Louise, as well as the rest of the DeFeo children. Ronnie DeFeo Sr. worked as the service manager at his father-in-law, Michael Brigante Sr.'s car dealership, Brigante Carl Buick, on Coney Island Avenue in Brooklyn. As Ronald DeFeo Jr. got older, his temper became more than his father's. He and his father would often have physical altercations. His temper would flare for no reason. His parents became concerned and even sent Ronald DeFeo Jr. to a psychiatrist, which didn't help at all. They would give Ronald DeFeo Jr. whatever he wanted, including money and a speedboat. Even with his parents giving him everything he could ever want, Ronald and his father still had their violent fights. After leaving school, Ronald DeFeo Jr. began to use LSD and heroin. His behavior became increasingly unpredictable and violent. At age 18, Ronald DeFeo Jr. began working for his father and was given a weekly paycheck, whether or not he showed up for work. He worked in the service department doing oil changes, tune-ups, and washes. DeFeo Jr. took advantage of working for his family. He once told a psychiatrist that he could do whatever he wanted on the job because his father was his boss. It was only a matter of time between the heavy drug use and the unpredictable and violent outbursts that Ronald DeFeo Jr. would finally snap. In the early morning hours of November 13, 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr. methodically walked around the Dutch colonial home located on 112 Ocean Avenue with a .35 caliber Marlin rifle. He slowly walked into his parents' bedroom where he shot and killed his parents, Ronald DeFeo Sr. and Louise DeFeo. He then proceeded to walk around each bedroom in the house, shooting and murdering his 4 younger siblings, Dawn, Allison, Marc, and John DeFeo. According to Suffolk County Police, the victims were all lying face down in the bed, and the neighbors surrounding the Dutch colonial home on 112 Ocean Avenue claimed to have never heard a single gunshot during the time of the murders. DeFeo Jr. would later admit that he had taken a bath and redressed. He discarded crucial evidence such as bloodstained clothing, the Marlin rifle, and the cartridges before going to work as usual. The .35 caliber Marlin rifle and its items were later found by the police. In the early evening hours of November 13, 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr. walked into Henry's Bar, a tavern located at the corner of Merrick Road and Ocean Avenue in Amityville. He claimed that his family had been murdered. The bar's patrons accompanied him back to the house, where they discovered the bodies and immediately called the police. The inconsistencies in Ronald DeFeo Jr.'s story raised suspicion. A day after the murders, Ronald DeFeo Jr. would confess to murdering his family. He even suggested that he heard voices telling him to kill everyone. DeFeo told police, "Once it started, I couldn't stop. It went so fast." During his trial, DeFeo changed his defense several times, claiming insanity, but he was ultimately found guilty of 6 counts of second-degree murder. At one point, DeFeo claims that his sister Dawn began the killing spree and that he shot her in self-defense while trying to wrestle the gun away from her. In other accounts, he claimed the mob shot everyone. At the outset, he said he was high on pot in the basement and didn't hear the shooting. In December 1975, Ronald DeFeo Jr. was sentenced to 6 concurrent sentences of 25 years to life in prison. That same year, George and Kathy Lutz bought the house in Amityville for what was considered to be a bargain price of $80,000. And this would only be the beginning of what would famously be dubbed the Amityville Horror. The Lutz family moved in on December 18, 1975. Much of the DeFeo family's furniture was still in the house, as it was included for part of the deal. A friend of George Lutz learned about the history of the house and insisted on having it blessed. George knew a Catholic priest named Father Ralph Pecoraro who agreed to carry out the house blessing. On the afternoon of December 18, 1975, Father Pecoraro arrived at the home on 112 Ocean Avenue to perform the blessing. While George and Kathy were unpacking their belongings, Father Pecoraro went into the house to carry out the rites. When Father reached the second floor, he walked into what was the former bedroom of Marc and John Matthew DeFeo. As he flicked the first holy water and began to pray, he heard a deep masculine voice demand that he get out. When leaving the house, Father Pecoraro did not mention this incident to either Kathy or George Lutz. On December 24, 1975, Father Pecoraro called George Lutz and advised him to stay out of the second-floor room where he had heard the mysterious voice. Kathy Lutz planned on using it as a sewing room, but the call was cut short by static. Following his visit to the house, Father Pecoraro allegedly developed a high fever and blisters on his hands similar to stigmata. There have been several bizarre accounts on what really happened inside the home between mid-December 1975 and mid-January 1976. Stories of slime oozing from the walls, a mysterious hidden red room in the basement that was supposedly the gateway to hell. Other things such as doors being ripped from hinges, cabinets slamming shut on their own. An imaginary large red-eyed pig named Jody that only the youngest daughter Melissa Lutz could see, as well as other ghostly phenomena. George Lutz told ABC News in 2006, "There were odors in the house that came and went. There were sounds. The front door would slam shut in the middle of the night. I couldn't get warm in the house for many days." Lutz claimed that he would mysteriously wake up at 3:15 a.m. nearly every morning. This was estimated to be around the same time that the DeFeo family was believed to be murdered. George Lutz also claimed that his wife Kathy was physically transformed into an old woman and once levitated. Lutz also claimed that one night he heard his children's beds slamming up and down on the floor, but said that he could not do anything because an invisible force was paralyzing him. 28 days later, on January 14, 1976, George and Kathy Lutz, with their 3 children and their dog Harry, left 112 Ocean Avenue, leaving all of their possessions behind. American author Jay Anson would publish the book The Amityville Horror in September of 1977, based off of 45 hours of tape-recorded recollections by George and Kathy Lutz of what they had experienced in the house on 112 Ocean Avenue. It became a success, spawning a blockbuster movie based on the events. The house has become known as one of the most haunted houses in America. Many have claimed that the whole story was a hoax to cash in on the DeFeo murders, but some still believe that the house is truly haunted. George and Kathy Lutz divorced in the late 1980s, but remained on good terms. Kathy Lutz died on August 17, 2004 of emphysema. George Lutz died on May 8, 2006 of heart disease. And on March 12th in 2021, Ronald DeFeo Jr. died at age 69. The official cause of death has not been released to the public. The address of the house in Amityville was changed from 112 to 108 Ocean Avenue due to extreme public interests, but that still has not stopped people all over the world from visiting the infamous haunted house. So what really happened in that house in Amityville? We do know that 6 people lost their lives to a brutal murder. Is the house in Amityville really haunted? Does evil truly lie within its plaster walls, its glass windows, and its wooden beams? Or was it just an elaborate hoax just to cash in on the murder of 6 innocent people? That's for you to decide.